He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
We're back with a special edition. Now I got to do a bunch of corrections. That's what happens when you're old. You make mistakes. So we had Vince is a returning guest.
Yes.
Returning guest. So last week I mentioned that Francis Josa, week before actually, 2 weeks ago, I mentioned Francis Josa was the first repeat guest. And of course I was totally fucking wrong. Okay. The first repeat guest was Rob Campbell. He has that pride of place. Rob is it. He's the first repeat guest. So I'm doing the editorial correction right now. Okay.
That's fair.
Because naturally I was reminded. But it's correct. It's truthful. It's real. Rob's a friend. He was the first repeat. And Francis was number 2. Vince, you're the third repeat guest.
I'm okay. Just being invited back's a pleasure.
Always good to have you because you bring some very, very interesting background to some of the stuff that goes on in the mortgage and real estate industry in the GTA. So let's start off with what both you and I have been observing for the last, 6 months. Maybe longer, but definitely in the last 6 months. Let's call it mortgage disaster stories. Okay, let's just call it mortgage disaster. All right. So tell us about these 2 purchases that fell apart, Vince. This is really interesting stuff. Go ahead.
It's been a while we've been doing this, Ron.
I
haven't seen this one on the bingo card in a while.
When you told me about it, I hadn't heard about it for like 2 decades.
We have a couple clients within a span of 45, 60 days.
Wow.
Deal fell through. File complete.
The purchase fell through.
Yeah. Right? File complete. Borrowers are ready to go.
Everybody's good.
And it's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, how is this falling through? Appraisal's in. Everything's good to go.
Yeah.
It's good to go. Vendor can't give clear title.
Vendor can't give clear title. So your guy's good. You're the borrower guy.
I'm good.
They're good.
They're good. The vendor can't get clear title because they got a first mortgage, a second mortgage. They got probably property tax arrears, penalties on the first, penalties on the second, and the realtor is not willing to shave his commission
by a penny.
Look,
we're not mad at realtors, so
right?
You're great.
So it dragged on for about 48 hours, and then it got to the point where the purchaser said, I just want my release. I want out of the deal. Give me my money back. I'm out. I can't wait around. So I'm like, okay, that's a first, and it happens twice.
Then it happens again.
Happens twice. So
almost
I'm thinking,
identical?
Almost identical.
Yeah.
Now, is this a trend? I don't know. But I'm going to be sure looking out for it. I was talking to Norbert and the team. I said, maybe we got to start doing purviews on these properties on purchases. We usually do them on refis, but not purchases, to try to see what type of debt loads on these things to make sure they could get out.
So for everybody in the rest of Canada, Purview is a system that's instead of pulling title, which can be $80, Purview is a $10 product, which originally started out as, I won't really go through this whole shittery that happened, but Purview started as $300 for $10, and then turned into basically Purview was like the drug dealer at the high school. Hey, first taste is free. Come on, over here. So we had the best deal in the world. Every mortgage broker got used to it. It was costing like 25 cents for a pull of this Purview report, which, by the way, is very useful. Tells you what this estimated value is.
Very helpful.
Documents all the liens against the property, first mortgage, second mortgage, third mortgage, whatever. It's all there. You can see it. Confirms who the owners are, confirms the whole story.
Gives you an estimate value.
Yeah, it's drawing
Pretty
on
close.
data from the actual title organization. So it's verified data. It's all good, but it started for 25 cents and then went to $10. So that's fine. 12, I think, maybe 12. But anyway,
costs money.
Bottom line is this report allows you to get an idea what the mortgages are. It's not a perfect idea because it can't tell you, it only tells you where the mortgage started, okay? But let's break this down a little, Vince, because this is, and you're right, I haven't heard about this for 20 years either. I really haven't.
Sign of the times.
Sign of the times. So let's break it down. So we have a borrower on the seller side, the seller of the house. They've obviously, like anybody who's got a second mortgage, was a private second, I would assume, right?
Yep.
If you got a private second mortgage, there was a reason for that. Either you had a problem with getting the whole amount of money from the bank, or at some point you needed more money to do something, and you had to go out and get a private mortgage. So we got a bank mortgage. You told me it was a huge penalty on the bank mortgage.
On
right?
the first mortgage, there was a $26,000 penalty.
Jesus
that
Christ.
I do know.
Wow.
And they were trying to negotiate it. And I got a feeling that the minute the seller's realtor asked the buyer's realtor if you want to split the cost and try to pitch some money in, I got a feeling my borrower's realtor said, just give us a release. We're going to go somewhere else. I'm not taking a haircut on selling a house. That should have gone through. You should have did your due diligence beforehand.
Should have done the math ahead of time.
Should have did the math.
So then we've got a second mortgage, which would have at least a 3-month penalty.
At least a 3-month.
We don't know about the tax arrears. We don't know about any other liens, but yeah, that adds up. So in other words, if you were a realtor, you could have done the base math on saying, well, you got a mortgage for first mortgage for X, a second mortgage for Y. When we add those up, there's the purchase, the sale price. The sale price is still higher than that. But whoever did the calculation forgot there's penalties.
Yep.
And fees.
And Ron, that begs the question, right? Can you start asking? I guess you can't. I guess the realtor should, who's representing the seller.
Realtor can, yeah.
Give me an information statement. Let me know what penalties would be incurred if you break this thing.
Now, by the way, folks, if you don't necessarily need, let's say you've got total lending on a house of $300,000 and you're selling the house for $1 million, you don't need to bother with any of this stuff. But when you are close, like when you're selling a house for $1 million and the mortgages add up to 9.25%, you got to start thinking about this.
You got to think about it.
You got to think about this. So that's the situation there. So you had,
and that's twice, Ron.
Twice.
It's not an anomaly,
that's not
right?
Anecdotal madness. That's a pattern.
So
twice for you is a pattern.
We're thinking, okay, what do we got to do to avoid this? If it happens a third time, we're going to probably do some purviews and take a look and see and warn the realtor and the borrower that, hey, make sure you could get out of you could take clean title.
Now let's for the sake of the audience, let's talk about what the underlying concern is here. The underlying concern is that we've reached a point in the whole cycle of higher mortgage rates and in some cases decreasing values. Because let's face it, if you were one of those poor people out in Ajax who bought in 2021 for outbid 700 other people who were making offers, and you ended up paying $2.2 million for a 50-foot lot on a 3,200 square foot detached in Ajax, and you ended up paying $2.2 million, and now it's worth 1.6. You got a problem anyway, right? So we've got basically, other than key 416, central 416, prime neighborhoods in 416, prime neighborhoods in Mississauga, Oakville, the very best neighborhoods, the nicest neighborhood in Vaughan, for instance, or whatever. Sorry if I'm boring all the people in other parts of Canada, but imagine it's not West Van,
no,
it's not Vancouver West, it's not Granville, it's not the most expensive places. In some cases, like if you bought in Agassiz or you bought in the farthest reaches of Langley in 2021, I think you're in a problem too. So let's just break it down. The concept here is that there's two things happening. There's some value decline in some real estate in some parts of Canada, not in Alberta, possibly not in Quebec, but in many parts of Ontario and British Columbia, there's some value decline going on. And we have people who are experiencing much higher mortgage rates and also a weakening economy. That's a pretty bad recipe on its own, right?
It is. And here's the conclusion I come to is that if you're buying a home that was purchased in 2020, 2021, chances are the reason why it's listed high is because it needs to have enough money to get out of the debt it's carrying.
So true. That's
right?
Absolutely right.
So, because there's always that talk about, well, there's a lot of listings and they're sitting because they're still expecting a certain amount of money. Mm-hmm. Is it because that's what they need to get out?
Exactly.
And I'm trying to, connect the dots here.
Yep.
And I think that's what's probably prompting these stable prices. Like if somebody bought a house 15 years ago, there's probably some movement there. There's probably some negotiating.
Oh, sure. Our neighbor who bought right across the street from us in Mississauga, it's not just an old house in a nice part of Mississauga that we live in. It was an old house across the street. The neighbor's old. The neighbor had to go to some place where they can get less work on the house and more care. Okay.
Like my dad.
Free and clear house. Free and clear house. Same as your dad. Free and clear house. Okay. You can sell that for whatever you want, right? Like you don't need to make 2.2 million. Nope. You don't have to do that. And that's exactly right. We have many houses in our neighborhood listed for over 2 million. These people listed for under 2 million accepted an offer for even slightly less than their asking price. They just had to sell. They were moving. They were moving out of the province to be with their family. And they just sold. Like it wasn't like a bidding war. It was like I'm going to pay less war. Okay. Yeah. I want to offer you less.
And they wanted out.
And they had to go.
Yep.
They had to go. They had a new place bought, and I hate to say it, but sometimes people's health is in decline and they got to make a move.
Yep.
Okay. And that's what happened. But that's the only one that sold in the neighborhood. Only one that sold was free and clear.
Because there's room on the downside.
Yes, you can. If you have to sell, you can. It's all profit. You paid. By the way, he paid $220,000 for that house 30 years ago.
So you think of all the rentals out there that people want to unload.
Woo!
They're all at 80% LTVs.
All of them,
right?
Or less, or worse.
They might be in the same situation.
They might even be in a worse situation. Right? We could talk about the condos all day. Let me tell you about the weird one I got. There's just. And what people don't understand in the real estate biz is that there's people who just make fundamental errors. Okay, fundamental errors. They have an idea in their head that they think has value, that they think they're right, that they hear the local gossip in the area that this is a prime location, and they say, "Well, yeah, I believe you. I believe this is going to be a great thing for me." So I'll tell you what it is. You know how Lake Erie, the stuff on the other side of the peninsula is crap, right? I mean, sorry, all you people out there, we love you. We fucking love you, okay? All you people in those little towns on the other side of the Niagara Peninsula, okay? We love you.
Put on the helmet.
You're the best people in the world. We love you. But I think even you would agree, your real estate has not had fundamental, massive value increases, okay? So you got to look at a map to figure this out. So it's like the other side of the Niagara Peninsula from Hamilton and Niagara-on-the-Lake and that whole area and all those St. Catharines. It's the other side. It's the other side where Lake Erie is. And Vince knows those are not typically...
Dunnville, Turkey Point.
Yes, sir. Okay. And those are not traditionally stellar markets.
Port Dover,
yes, indeed.
The Erie Hotel.
By the way, great for if you're a motorcycle enthusiast. Port Dover has one weekend of the year that's great.
And they have celery bread at the Erie Hotel, which is pretty good.
I feel better already. But you can imagine someone who is sort of an average person sitting here in Toronto who decides that they want to buy a lakefront property on Lake Erie, like 20 minutes away from Port Dover on the lake. It's old, it's decrepit, it needs a whole bunch of repairs and a whole bunch of improvement. Yeah. And that's going to be a big construction project. And you decide that that's where people want to Airbnb because it's going to be years before you retire there. Okay, it's going to be like 10 years. So you decide because some local people told you it was true. Okay, that's an Airbnb hotbed. Okay, yep. Lake Erie. Okay,
Lake Erie.
We all
Crystal Beach.
Sweet Jesus. Okay. So then also you talk to some contractors because you want to do this big, you got to gut the place and do tons of fixes. So you talk to local contractors who guarantee you that all it will take is 150 grand to turn this into a top joint, and it'll be Airbnb it like crazy. So you've had all the realtor who sold you the place told you it's going to be a dream.
Yep.
You got the contractor who said, yeah, for 150 grand, we're going to turn this into Taj Mahal. So you get you buy it, this sort of lackluster property for, I get a first mortgage with a bank, and then you get a private mortgage because the contractor guarantees it's only going to be 150,000, and then it's going to be a beauty when that's
But it's going to be higher rates because it's in Port Dover.
And it's high rates because it's private to begin with, right? So you're paying, and you only need it for a year because I'll be finished on time. Don't worry, says Mr. Contractor.
Don't worry.
All right. So let's fast forward a year. Okay. The contractor's gone through 180 grand. The person had to chip in some of her own money, and it ain't finished yet.
And you may be on your second contractor.
Same one, but like 180 grand and only 80% finished, you need another 60, okay? So the promise of 150 has now grown to 240, okay? And you're not finished, and you still feel really sure that this is the Airbnb capital of Canada.
Because it's looking good.
It's on its way, okay? And the second mortgage is due to the private lender. The private lender says, yeah, you're not finished. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm worried you'll never finish.
I want my money back.
I want my money back. So they get an offer. She's in a panic. Person's in a panic. Got to pay that off and got to get another 50 or 60 grand. And so she said, well, I talked to these people it's a law firm you are very familiar with. So I said, tell them you the name of this law firm is offering on the second mortgage, okay? The new second mortgage.
The lender of last resort.
Well,
almost.
That's the top three lenders of last resort,
all right.
okay? Because the real lender of last resort doesn't want to do anything near Port Dover.
No,
okay?
that's a very good point.
But they found somebody who both you and I are familiar with. They found a law firm who will lend them some money for $30,000 in fees because the mortgage broker's got to be paid. Okay, so you need a lot bigger mortgage than you got to add another between the mortgage broker who found these wonderful lenders for her. And I know who that is too. Sweet Jesus. It's like
it's an episode of Pacific Heights.
It's just literally like banditry. It's just banditry. I feel sorry for the woman. Slow down. I'm laughing because it's the situation is just so ridiculous. But this is just a person who's an ordinary person who should never gotten into the renovation business, never gotten into the Airbnb business, just heard it was good. Heard it was... and she had friends and family in that region who told her, yeah, it's going to be great. Oh yeah, there's lots of action. This is a couple of years ago, obviously. We're there now. We're down the pipe. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's just so funny to hear, if you're in our business, about the kind of vast abuse that's being planned for this woman.
And that's the tough part, right? Because everybody is stuck in this FOMO, fear of missing out.
Well, they were. That's for sure.
They were. And they got into these deals based on what somebody told them was a good idea.
Exactly.
Right? And that rumor kind of started when rates were low.
Absolutely.
And they forgot that rates have gone up, and they even missed that part of it.
Yeah, and by the way, for this poor person, again, I apologize for laughing, but the level of insanity of the proposals that were running around with this nonsense, which are only abusive, were striking me as funny. It was so crazy that you would even suggest this. But the reality of life is that this poor person, they're stuck. Like, what can they do? So if they don't finish, they can't get a penny of rental income from it.
Nothing.
It's incredibly hard to sell an unfinished property.
You're gonna lose your shirt.
You're gonna lose your shirt. And really, the lenders that are involved who made the proposal, they are not afraid of something called loan to own.
Yes.
Okay. Because here's the difference, folks.
That's what they're hoping on, really.
That's sort of the plan, that we're going to own this, then we're going to then power them out when they miss a payment, and we're going to make, because we're lawyers, we power them ourselves, and we make another $30,000, $40,000 in legal fees as we're powering them out.
Eat everything up.
On and on and on. So, and hopefully we'll sell it, and that's the end of it.
And Ron, at the end of the day, it's all about financial literacy. right? People just are ignorant. They're making decisions without proper insight into the going-ons of the process, all the auxiliary fees, all these steps that could have a margin of error that when you add them all up could be a big error when they all compound. And they just think that 1 + 1 is 2, and this is easy. There's no legal fees. There's no broker fees, no appraisal fees, no inspection fees, no permit fees. They lose out on that whole segment of fees that they don't realize it has to be accounted for. Somebody's got to pay it, and it's not anyone else other than them. So it's a shit show.
You're so right. I mean, this ultimately boils down to the people who say, friends of mine have told me, or my brother-in-law, or my sister-in-law, or my cousin made a fortune on this transaction, this real estate transaction. They did super well. So why can't I do that? Like, let's face it, most people think they're smarter than their brother-in-law.
Yeah. It's a good point.
So why can't I do it? So I might as well do it. And we're going to talk about this shortly, is that nobody really understands the minutia, as you pointed out, the minutia of the details.
Yeah.
The absolute set of circumstances that could hit you, problem after problem, issue after issue, unknown cost after unknown cost, which then starts to push the whole thing off the rails. And you just thought that it was going to be simple because your brother-in-law could do it, and you think he's halfway an idiot. Okay. This is the nature of boundless enthusiasm for real estate in Ontario. This is what can happen to people. No, don't get me wrong. I know there's a bunch of people listening to this podcast who says, well, she was just stupid. Okay. No, she wasn't stupid. Okay.
She's blind.
She made a bad decision. Okay. She made a bad decision. And Vince and I can introduce you to a shit ton of people who we both would say made a bad decision. Okay.
Yeah.
It can happen. Okay?
And the sad thing is, it takes so much time and effort to save up money. In some cases, a generation.
Yes.
And take the time to think this out. Budget. Have professionals look at it. Give you advice. Digest it. Think about it before you jump in, because that's where I think the error is people are just so quick to go in and jump into the deep end, not realizing that, holy shit, there's no help here.
And with, again, not trying to be too disrespectful to realtors, obviously someone told her, yeah, you'll have no problem getting this renovated. Your bank will probably give you the money. I mean, let's just get it bought and then apply for the permits, and then, you can apply for construction loan, and then you find out, hell no, the bank hasn't given any construction loan.
No.
So now that's the first phase of rock and hard place. Okay, is that, shit, they won't give me any money. Now I got to go private because I got to do it because it's too beat up to Airbnb now, and then on and on and on. Just like your situation that you described two separate times, nobody knew what the penalty was.
No.
Nobody investigated. Nobody took the time to analyze it. And both of those situations, I'm guessing I'm probably right, if they involved private mortgages, the people were pretty much at the end of their rope anyway and had no additional cash.
They were broke. They had no reserves.
They had to sell, right?
No
In
reserve.
all likelihood, they had to sell. Those
Exactly.
sellers had to sell. Okay. And no reserves to try to make the commission work and to offset the extra expenses.
And to think about it now, that property's going back on the market.
Yep.
And they're not going to get more.
No, they're not.
So how does that story end? Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
Not good. So, which brings us to another thing that I've been thinking about with you since the last time you were here. Because, the story of density in big urban centers like Vancouver and Toronto particularly, the question of density that's the word of the day. That's the word of the year, right?
Yeah.
We need more density. So just to backtrack, folks, what politicians and governments have been saying for all of the last 18 months is, and I'll list a couple of the programs, but these governments have been saying the problem with the high batshit crazy price of real estate houses in Ontario and British Columbia is going to be solved by increasing density.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be taking people sitting on large single-family lots and having those people convert that single family home to duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, garden suite, laneway, whatever the case may be, and take the number of families currently living from 1 or 2 to 5, or at least 4.
At least 4. As of right, 4.
As of right, 4. So we had the moves made in the whole province of British Columbia, just upzoned the province.
Yep.
Dave Eby, the premier, just stepped in and said, yep, we're going to upzone the entire province. We're not waiting for you cities and towns to decide. No. We're just going to upzone the whole province. Every single family lot can be turned into a fourplex. Maybe I can't remember. Might even be a sixplex there. I don't remember. But definitely
as of right by 4.
As of right. By the way, Toronto, City of Toronto, that is the case as well, isn't it?
It is. By
right in the City of Toronto, if you have a single family lot, there is no requirement to rezone to put a limited number of multifamily. Was it a fourplex or it's fiveplex or is it sixplex? Fourplex.
Yeah.
Fourplex plus laneway, right?
If you have an existing fourplex, you can add a laneway or a garden suite.
Got it. Okay. So we've got, and by the way, for the folks out there, this is what the entire story of the Housing Accelerator Fund is. So we hear from the federal government all the time, like daily, for the love of Jesus. We hear about, hey, Housing Accelerator Fund, going to fix everything. By the way, everybody remember about the Housing Accelerator Fund. The actual money to build houses only goes to subsidized rentals.
That's correct.
That's this multi-billion-dollar fund, not one penny of building actually goes to helping people who want to buy a house.
And the definition of affordable housing is 80% of the market rent for that unit, as defined by CMHC. So
it's all multi-res rental for, in most cases, for subsidized.
And doesn't pencil out.
Right. But at the end of the day, that's where a bunch of the money's going. But to get the money, the municipality, the town, the city has to agree to this upzoning, to this change your bylaws so that you can put 4 units on a single family lot. That's a requirement of the Housing Accelerator Fund.
Yes.
Yeah. So folks, what we need to tell you is the whole story, the magical story of creating vast numbers of homes that you get from the federal government. Remember, we're still the promise of 3.5 million extra homes. Extra homes. Well, actually, there's fewer homes being built this year than ever in the last, since 2021?
Longer than that. 40 years, I think.
So this is going to be one of the lowest construction years of new homes in decades. I know that's hard to believe, but yeah, it is. So this idea of creating more density on a single family lot so that more families can live in town, in the city. More families can live in the city and therefore be more affordable for them to buy. And it would be more affordable and it would make sense for people to convert their single family homes for a bunch of reasons we'll get into in a minute, is absolutely accepted by the City of Toronto and the whole province of Alberta and a bunch of other cities besides Toronto in some fight. Mississauga fights, Windsor fights, but...
Well, it's allowed, but can it happen?
That's what I want to talk to Vince about next, because Vince actually is involved in the development of these projects.
We build them.
You build them, finances them, builds them, and he is an eyewitness to, is it fair to say, the fuckathon of getting these built? Is that too harsh?
That's a fucking new term, actually.
I
love that.
That's one of my favorite terms, the fuckathon.
I love that because it is a marathon. It is a fuckathon.
It is. So let's start with this last project that you're working on. You were telling me a few things earlier. Let's give the list of insanity you've been faced with. By the way, again, folks, this is really important to know. This is approved, endorsed by law, that this is doable. In the City of Toronto, no ifs, ands, or buts. Council will tell you, Mayor Chow will tell you, yeah, we're doing this. We are doing this, okay? So now let's start on a brief list of how the fuckathon commences.
Okay. So first of all, everybody thinks if I got a home, as of right, I could build 4 units. I could build a laneway suite. I could build a garden suite. Sure. Well, first of all, not every property qualifies. Surprise.
Wait a minute, Vince. I got to stop for a second. Didn't the mayor and the council say every property must qualify?
Well, here you go. If you got an existing dwelling and you don't have a meter egress,
What's that? What is that?
you need a meter of access, a meter-wide access to get to that back unit if you're building a garden suite or laneway suite for emergency services.
Oh.
Okay. So if you don't have a meter, not 0.9 meters, a meter, you can't get a permit for a laneway or garden suite. If you don't have a fire hydrant 100 feet from, I think it's 100 or 105, 100 feet from your property line, you can't get a garden suite or laneway suite.
Vince. I think I'm going to do this a few times. Vince, wait a second. Like, a lot of these places are 100-year-old neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they won't have that fire hydrant everywhere.
Not all of them. So you have to know what you have and what you're looking to buy to repurpose, because you don't want to go through the exercise of buying something with the intent to do it and then realize, fuck, I can't do it.
Jesus.
So you have to know this. And then, you run into the...
But now you did it, and you've got it, and you start building it.
You start building.
Yeah.
So now you have to deal with the city. You have to submit your permits. It's not one permit. You need 2 permits because it's 2 structures. So it's 2 separate sets of permits.
That's for the triplex and the laneway suite.
Exactly. Okay. So now you got to submit 2 sets of permits. Okay. They don't always go to the same permit examiner.
Hold it. Stop. Sorry. It's the same lot.
Same lot, same address.
And it might go to 2 different people.
It might go to 2 different people. They haven't figured this out yet.
Jesus Christ.
And this permit submission, unlike... you go to the Ministry of Transportation and they got an express line for dealers to get plates.
Yes, of course.
Okay?
Yeah.
We have to sit behind the guy who's applied for a deck.
Hold it. The guy who wants... You're in the same boat...
I am in the same
as
line.
the guy who wants a deck or extend his kitchen 2 feet.
Or wants to repair his chimney. Or needs a parking pad.
Hold it. Stop.
So there's no express lane.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So I'm chatting.
Wait a second. You're in the same boat trying to bring density to Toronto as the guy who wants to fix his chimney. You have the same weight.
Absolutely.
Line.
100%.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's no express line.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You're already time stacking on. It's costing you money because it's, you got bills to pay. You got to keep crews working.
This is the important part. I'll come back to this one more time, but I want to throw this in. Full stop on this idea. You need financing to do this.
Yes.
And you have to start paying effectively from the first day.
Exactly.
So every delay counts. Oh, and by the way, you got a contractor working on it.
Yep.
Who needs to get paid too? Mm-hmm. And even though he can't get the work done necessarily, the meter's running. You got to deal with neighbor complaints. Even though you have your permits, you got... Hold it. I thought all this NIMBYism was brought to...
Not at all, Ron.
Not at all.
Okay, because if there's a complaint filed, the bylaw inspector has to address it and deal with it.
Hold on a second. So what if it's just sheer fucking stupidity? Just like...
You gotta deal with it. You gotta close the file. They gotta come back 10 days later, make sure it's all okay.
So wait a minute. So the inspector, the complaint comes in from neighbor.
Yep.
Give an example of a complaint.
We had a bin that was garbage bin for all the debris.
Yeah.
That was impeding on the sidewalk by about 4 inches because there's no room.
So sorry, 4 inches?
4 inches, right? So there was a complaint from a neighbor who thought that this was impeding on their ability to walk on the sidewalk.
But it's not. It's 4 inches, for the love of God.
But it's impeding on the sidewalk. They filed a complaint. We got to get an inspector out. We got to get rid of the bin. We got to get a smaller bin. Adds to more disposal costs because you got to get smaller bins, more frequent visits.
By the way, Vince, I know a little bit about bins. Aren't bins sort of a fair... Like, there's maybe 2 or 3 sizes. That's it, right?
There's only 3-4 sizes.
So now, are you saying that eventually we're going to have, for these small lots, like if you have a small lot that's only got like 30-foot frontage, 25-foot frontage, are we going to have to find somebody to build micro bins?
Yep. Or those bags that could be lifted, right?
But you can't put a whole bunch of debris in a bag.
But think about it, right? You get a big bin, there's only one pickup.
Right.
You get smaller bins, there's
micro bin, yeah.
You get multiple pickups. Now you got to pay for delivery charges. You got more pollution on that truck coming to the site multiple times, right? So all these green people that want the climate to be saved are creating a problem for more visits to that site. So it becomes a joke, becomes an absolute joke. And then you have...
Okay, so the inspector comes out, he sees, yes, And then you go and...
Most of them are reasonable.
But then you go and get the miniature bin.
You get the miniature bin.
But you got to have the inspector come back to see the miniature bin, right?
They come back and make sure that you've rectified the situation at least 10 days later.
Jesus.
You got 10 days to comply. We do what we got to do. We make everybody happy, but it's a waste of resources. That bylaw inspector has to make 2 visits to that property, like he's got nothing else better to do.
For 4 inches.
For 4 inches.
Jesus.
You got a fence that, it's going to be replaced, but the neighbor complained.
Tell me about the leaning
fence.
So
we had a neighbor on one site complaining about a leaning fence, which was going to be replaced upon completion.
And
but
you were going to foot the cost
we're
of the
footing the bill,
fence. Yeah,
footing the bill, but he was upset that he couldn't plant his string beans. So it's like, okay, fuck.
Sorry, wait a second.
We have a leaning fence that's supposed to be...
No, but wait a second. This is effectively a string bean complaint, right?
String bean complaint.
To the city of Toronto.
This is the insanity.
Yeah, to the city of Toronto, right?
To the city of Toronto. Well, in this case, we put the fence up, made him happy. Last thing you want to do is have an angry neighbor bring up complaints every day.
Is this the same guy with the dust?
No, that's the other side.
That's another side. That's the other neighbor. Tell us about the dust. Okay?
We're putting up siding. We need safe scaffolding.
Which is an absolute requirement.
It's a requirement. Yeah. It's a safety requirement. You have...
Even though it's only a 2-story building.
It's actually 3.
3, okay.
It's 3-story. You got scaffolding. And for safety reasons, you have to encroach on the neighbor's side. Neighbor complains.
Hold on. Isn't the encroachment allowed through your permitting process?
It is, but there's a complaint.
Wait a second. Hold on. No. So I got to talk about this for a second. So you've got a permit that allows the encroachment.
Yes.
Of the scaffolding onto the property.
Correct.
Because it's just necessary. You've got to build a house.
Correct.
And we want to have this triplex instead of a single family. Okay.
Correct.
And even though it's absolutely in the permit that if the neighbor complains, you've got to have the inspector come out just to tell him it's in the permit?
Correct. So what would be a good solution is if you want to file a complaint, put a $50 deposit down.
Or a $500 deposit.
Something. Just something that it's tangible. And if it's a useless complaint, you lose it.
But really, his complaint was more about not just encroachment. Once you got the encroachment thing finished, wasn't he mad about the stucco dust?
Once he realized that the scaffold could be there, he started complaining about, wow, it's really dusty here. All my windows are getting dusty. And
hold it. It's a construction project, for Christ's sakes.
We're improving the area. Their property value is going to go up in value because the neighborhood's going to be improved. And this
But slow down a minute. Ultimately, the city of Toronto has told everybody endlessly 1,000 times.
Yes, correct.
We are going to achieve density, but the neighbor doesn't want dust.
That's right.
So how are you going to build fuck all anything?
This is what you're dealing with, right? So this is where GCs, I give them a lot of credit for the patience because they deal with this every day. And the good ones know how to try to help the neighbors. Buy them lunch. Let me give you a coupon for a pizza. You gotta make them happy. You have to, or else it's just gonna be hell.
So Vince, are you saying NIMBYism is not dead?
It's not dead. It is not dead. And this is the sad part, right? Because we're in dire need of units. And these are nice units, 2-3 bedroom units. They're 800-900, 1,200 square feet units. They're reasonable.
Okay. Listen to that, folks. Listen to that. These are not shitty 385 square foot micro condos that everybody...
Dog crates. They're not dog crates.
They're not dog crates. This is quality, brand new construction, quality units that are rationally sized. Okay?
Yes.
Let's face it. A lot of people raised, after the Second World War, a lot of people raised families of 4 in 900 square foot units.
Yeah,
900 square foot bungalows. Okay?
Exactly.
And you've got 1,200 square feet in some
1,200.
Okay?
Yeah, they're big units. And this is what drives me mad, but we're pushing through. We're fighting through it because we believe that this density is good quality density. They're by transit hubs. They're all within walking distance of shopping and stuff like that. So they're good units.
So you're building the 15-minute city.
Well, I'm trying to, one at a time. But the reality is we're fighting through the bureaucracy and bullshit that slows everything down. Jeremiah Shameless had that picture of the building code 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It was like this thick, and now it's 3 times the size.
You told me something about a hallway you had to do.
Yeah, in one particular case, we had a hallway that was used to access the 3 units, and they want us to do a fire separation. You need fire separation code so that
in a hallway?
In a hallway, yeah.
Wait a second. Is somebody going to start a bonfire in the fucking hallway? This doesn't make any fucking sense.
But this is the code, right? And this is where, when you're dealing with these type of properties, you need GCs that understand what rental units are versus custom homes. Okay?
All right.
Custom homes, pretty simple. Rental units, you need fire separation code. You have to extend your services, so you need bigger water supply. So you got to expand your water intake from maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch. You need more electricity, so your panels got to be upgraded to a higher amp service.
Okay, all right. So wasn't there some total insanity about the service to the laneway suite to do with the sewer? Wasn't there?
Yeah, so because the garden suites and the laneway suites are so new, what the city is starting to realize is that, you know what? Maybe what we do need is full service from the laneway and garden suite to the main
sewer service.
First, full sewer service to the street, main line, which is going to add another $10,000-$15,000 when you're digging.
Hold on. Like, so in the rational world, you would feed the garden suite to the house sewer service.
Correct.
Okay.
You're tapping into that. Okay. Because it's one unit.
Wait, hold on, folks, because like there's only so much shit, right? I mean, like, I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's 2-bedroom, maybe 3-bedroom tops. Okay. There's not going to be 6 people in it.
No one shits at the same time.
No one. Yeah. And so there's the connection of the service to the existing service for the triplex would make perfect sense. Yep. But no. The city is thinking maybe we need more. Because here's the key, folks, and everything that Vince is talking about. The key is that the city bureaucracy, all of these inspectors and all of these permit reviewers, I think are all working from home, right?
They all work from home.
All work from home. Okay, so they have, and right up to the management of the operation, could not give 2 shits about how much extra money is involved.
They don't care.
They just invent ideas that they think of would be an improvement. Now, here's what I know from social media. We're going to get a couple of comments on this podcast.
Absolutely.
That, oh, no, you're stupid. The whole place should be firewalled. Everything should be firewalled. Everything should be safe. And people need to be safe. And yeah, we should have a direct line because one day there might be too much poop. So, yeah, we need it. Yeah. You guys are full of shit. We need that. Well, I got news for you. All of you stupid fucking people who make those comments, okay, you are just wrong. What we need is affordable housing. We need housing that can be built at a rational cost so that people can afford the rents too, okay? We don't need you to dream up a fantasy world of the most incredibly complex building code that anybody could imagine, okay? That just adds to the cost. No, let the builder pay it. Well, I got fucking news for you. The builder never pays anything.
No, passes it on.
Passes it on to the end user.
It just becomes silly, and we also have to protect the exterior of our building with fire-rated material from the house next door catching fire, so ours doesn't catch fire.
Wait a minute. But the house next door has no such rating.
No rating.
Because it was built 80 years ago.
Because it's grandfathered.
Yeah.
But we have to protect the exterior walls with fire-rated material, so that way our house doesn't burn down if the neighbor's house catches fire.
But hold on.
Ron, you can't make this stuff up.
But if you never increase the density that the city wants, the old house that was sitting there has the same non-firewall.
That's right.
That's the same old product.
So, for example, we add an addition off the back.
Yeah.
It has to be metal studs. Can't be wood.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
So, sum up, folks. Vince Gaetano is somebody who is literally trying to do what the city of Toronto wants to do, is to add laneway, add garden suite, switch single family to triplex to fourplex, to try to do what the 15-minute city gurus and all the planners and all the council and Mayor Chow want to do. And it's a fuckathon cesspool of insanity, of red tape, inspections, permits. And by the way, for the triplex and the garden suite, Two different people might be studying it. How fucking stupid that could be. And you were saying that you've realized that the examiners, the people who actually look at the permits, are all young, new, and working from home.
Yep. So there's no coaching from supervisors on how to read plans.
Because there's nobody in the office.
There's nobody in the office. And to explain what a plan looks like in email format takes forever.
Because we're going to get comments, though, that we're old and stupid.
Yep.
And that everybody, you just don't know how good a Zoom meeting can figure all this stuff out, which, by the way, is a fucking lie.
Like we had, on one particular project, we had one examiner suggesting we didn't have two ways of egress, two exits of egress, right? So we're like, well, hold on, there are two.
It's right there.
It's right there. There's a fucking balcony. There's a front door. There's a side door. There's windows. There's multiple forms of egress. But he couldn't see it because he didn't know how to read a plan.
Because he's too new.
So we got to bring in the supervisor. Supervisor has to coach him. And it's like, okay, but we just lost 2 weeks because they don't work Mondays. They don't work Fridays. They're walking the dog.
And they have to do a coaching by Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
because nobody can gather around in an office and look at a plan, right?
Listen, Friday nights with my GC, we're having drinks because he needs to be brought down to a stress level dealing with the stuff.
All right, so to sum up, folks, all across Canada, the federal government has spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money in the Housing Accelerator Fund on the promise to bring density to cities where it makes sense. Except that, like everything else in government, the complexity of working with the people on the ground is unmanageable. The red tape is unmanageable. The costs to manage the red tape is bizarre, and you have to finance it the whole time at high interest rates because that's where the interest rates are today. And by the way, all adding about 30% to the cost of the new build in levies, taxes, development charges. Okay?
There's still development charges.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's an education levy. Six grand.
I think you actually paid for a park that there already was a park in your neighborhood.
Parkland dedication fee.
Parkland dedication.
There's no new park.
But there's no new park. But you're paying for a park in like some other place. Who the hell
Probably.
knows? Okay, yeah. All right. But you're paying for the park that's already there. Okay.
I'm paying.
So folks, here's our message. No matter what government tells you, it's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
It is bullshit.
And it's with a red, I call it the red tape brigade.
Yep.
Right? It's filled with red tape. There's no sunlight on the other side until somebody really grapples with this inspection team and the city planners and says, we got to allow this. Let's get them to build. Let's get engineers to sign off on permits. Let them put their license on the line. I'll pay the extra $500 to get a stamp from an engineer to speed it up. It'll be faster.
And why couldn't the people at the city that would highly reduce the amount of time they have to take because it's a friggin' engineer stamped it. Okay?
They're going to abide by their licensing and their E&O insurance.
Yeah. All right, folks. Vince, I got to thank you.
Thank you.
This is one of my favorite fucking topics, is that no matter what you hear from government, the reality, and by the way, I'm not just picking on the feds. This is every level of government. The province. Because guess what? For everybody you listening out there, provinces in Canada effectively control municipalities. They are all of their power in a municipality flows from the province, from the Municipalities Act. Okay, and the municipalities are mostly a gang of lunatics. Okay, the government of the mayors and the councillors in most cities are elected by no more than 12 to 18% of the electorate. They're just somebody who can gather up enough political payola, political heft, or belong to a party that they can put some organizers together. And they're elected by, I think there's 38 people in Mississauga. There's an election in Mississauga. I think there's 38 people running.
Olivia Chow got elected on 14%.
14%. Yeah. So that's the biggest city in Canada is 14% elect. So what I'm trying to explain is that no matter what you hear from government, of all levels, of all parties, we live in an age of undeniable bureaucratic bullshit that is slowing everything down. Remember one of my favorite sayings. When they built lots and lots and lots of dwellings in the late 70s and 80s, with about 80% less bullshit, 80% less red tape, 80% less building permit bullshit, 80% less reports. You need 24 reports before you can apply for a permit if you're building a subdivision. With all that less, in the late 70s, so we're talking 50 years ago, 45, 50 years ago, folks, almost all those fucking houses are still standing and people are living in them. They didn't fall in.
Nope.
The world didn't end. There wasn't a flood, okay? They're there. And we got to realize that this bullshit we're going through today, it's just more cost for you, the person who wants to live there. Thank you, Vince. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron. Got to do it again.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.